So, what if I told you that the blueprint for a more ethical AI and, maybe a healthier society didn't start in some sterile lab, but with a sick dog? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea for fixing our broken systems, and it starts from the ground up.
And like all good detective stories, this one kicks off with a single clue. A tiny piece of data that pretty much everyone else missed, even though it was hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Meet Chico. His owner started noticing something a little strange, this teeth grinding and air licking thing. But here's the catch. It only happened when he was winding down, just drifting off to sleep. Take him to the vet's office? Nothing. The dog's all jacked up on adrenaline. And what this means is that the most important piece of data, the home truth, it just vanishes. It's totally lost. The system, well, it was completely blind to what was actually going on in Chico's life.
And that one little observation about one dog, well, that's what cracks open our first big idea here. How a tiny, almost invisible symptom can actually point to a huge, massive failure in the whole system. The reason the system fails is because it's just not designed to see the world as it really is. It's completely disconnected from what the project calls the messy living reality. All those subtle but crucial details of life that you could never capture in a quick 15-minute appointment.
So this one dog symptom starts pointing to a much, much bigger idea. And to really get it, we've got to name the villain of our story. It's this invisible force that breaks not just veterinary care, but honestly, so many of our systems.
And here it is, the tyranny of abstraction. It's what happens when a system, think of an insurance company, stops seeing a living, breathing dog, and all it sees is a line on a spreadsheet, a collection of numbers and risk factors. It completely loses touch with the very being it's supposed to be there for.
So this whole problem really boils down to a fundamental choice. In any system, every single action is either generative or it's extractive, right? Are you connecting and contributing, making the whole thing healthier? Or are you isolating yourself and just extracting value, taking out more than you put in? It's really a binary choice. Are you a healthy cell or are you a cancer cell?
So how in the world do you fight that? Well, you don't attack the system from the outside. No. Instead, you introduce what they call a benevolent contagion. The best way to think about it is like a probiotic. You're adding a healthy, living culture into a sick system to help it heal itself from the inside out.
And this brings us to the actual how. So let's take a look at the architecture for this solution. It's a way to go from a dead ledger of old paper files to a living ledger for an internet of living things. The way the data moves is actually brilliantly simple, and it's all designed around privacy. First, you capture data at the source, the pet itself, from things like smart collars. But, and this is so crucial, that data goes to the owner's phone first. That's called the edge. This means you and only you hold the digital key. And only when you give permission does that data move on to the network, where it can be shared with, say, your vet or your insurer.
Let's be super clear about this. This is not about some big tech company watching your pet. It's the exact opposite. It's about data sovereignty. You own the data. You're the gatekeeper. You hold the key.
Okay, so a system where you own your data? That sounds great, right? But how does it actually change anything? Well, let's get into how this completely rewrites the economic model, moving us away from a system of blind risk to one that's based on truth. The problem today, the one we all feel, is that healthcare costs just keep going up and up. And why is that? Well, it's because the whole system runs on opacity. It's a black box. The insurance companies are basically flying blind. They don't have good data, so they have no choice but to price for the absolute worst-case scenario for everybody.
And that creates the relationship that we all know and, let's be honest, we all hate. It's a fight. It's you against the insurance company. You're trying to prove a claim is valid, and you're fighting a system that's designed to assume the absolute worst about you.
But the Vital Ledger, it just flips that whole script. It moves us to this brand new model of cooperative risk reduction. All of a sudden, you, your pet, your vet, and your insurer, you're all on the same team. You all have the exact same goal, keeping your dog healthy. And here's the magic ingredient that makes it all work, the transparency dividend. As an owner, you provide verified proof of care, things like activity logs or records of preventative treatments. Then, an open-source algorithm validates it, and the network automatically lowers your insurance premium. Think about that. For the very first time, a healthier dog literally becomes a less expensive dog because your good habits are rewarded directly.
And just imagine the long-term impact of this. This system can start the second a dog enters a shelter. Then, when that dog gets adopted, its entire medical history is transferred with just a simple QR code. What you get is an unbroken chain of data from day zero. That's an absolute goldmine for research into longevity and health.
Okay, now we need to zoom all the way out, because this whole project was never really just about dogs. We're talking about using a dog to build a blueprint for an operating system for life itself, and maybe for a more ethical future with AI.
The best way to think about the Vital Ledger is as a flight simulator. It's this safe, controlled environment where we can train AI. But instead of training it to optimize for profit or for clicks, we're training it to optimize for one simple thing: the health and well-being of a living creature. We're actually teaching it how to be benevolent.
So when you strip away all the tech and all the economics, what's the real, ultimate mission here? What's the core principle that's driving this entire vision?
It's this. It's about using the abstract world of code to protect and defend the tangible world of the living. It's about making sure our digital tools serve life and not the other way around.
And I really want to leave you with this final powerful thought. This project argues that the ultimate test for our future, it's not about computing power, it's about compassion. I mean, if we can't even design a simple system that treats a dog, a being that gives us unconditional love with dignity, what chance do we really have of building a superintelligence that will do the same for us?